So with all that, we asked the question, what will the GOP do about the Tea Party here? And for more on that, let's bring on our next guest, Kirsten Kukowski. She is the press secretary for the Republican National Committee. She's kind enough to join us out of our nation's capital. Thank you so much for a couple. I appreciate it.
Of course, no problem.
Well, we just played a lot of back and forth from national Republicans and also leading conservative voices. A GOP civil war, many are saying here. To that end, if there have been any lessons learned after, as even Speaker Boehner says, what was a defeat last night, pure and simple, what were those lessons that came out of it?
Look, I think that, what Speaker Boehner has said, what a lot of Republicans have said, is that we fought our hardest, and it could have gone a little bit better. We didn't maybe come out on top yesterday, but guess what? What we did accomplish was we brought a lot of issues that American people, if you look at the polling, actually really care about. Everything from the debt to our nation's penchant for overspending to their extreme dislike of Obamacare. As a party, we brought all of those issues to the forefront, and we have solutions for how we're going to tackle them, and so that's where the discussion is going to go from here. Just today, I just actually watched the White House press briefing with Jay Carney, and I will tell you that the conversation has already turned back again to Obamacare. What this administration is going to do, acknowledging that they have problems on their hands and really don't have solutions for that going forward with Obamacare. So I think that obviously hours later, the conversation has really turned, and we're really talking about issues that Americans really care about.
Well, to that end, I've heard some Republicans say, as mad as they were about how this conversation went off the rails here, and certainly every single poll, in Gallup's case, the lowest poll numbers they've done since they've ever conducted polls, opinions of the GOP of their handling. What many Republicans are most mad about is the lost opportunity, where instead of focusing on Obamacare, they created something about government shutdowns here and debt limit, defaults, etc. To that end, Ted Cruz went out at the very moment, I don't think it's coincidental, that Senator McConnell was speaking to the country from the floor of the Senate and held his own impromptu press conference where he accused the Republican senators of both betrayal, surrender, etc. here. And it seems like we're going to gear up for this same fight in January and February. How do Republicans get on the same page and listen to Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment and stop attacking one another?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go back to the point that you made earlier about poll numbers, and I will just say that when you look at President Obama's poll numbers and you look at Democrats in Congress, they are not doing well in anyone's eyes either. So I think that Washington in general has some work to do in this department. As far as where we go from here, how does the party work together? Look, we are unified against one issue, and that is Obamacare. That has been so from the very beginning. We may disagree on tactics and how we get to the end game, but I think that if you talk to any Republican in this city right now, that everyone is unified against Obamacare. And I think that's why it's so important that the White House today, the conversation has already changed with reporters, with the White House, back to Obamacare, back to how we fix this for Americans, because frankly, they're waking up every single day, watching the local news, reading their local paper, and really learning about what their neighbors and their friends are experiencing when they're trying to look at Obamacare and when they're trying to actually sign up for Obamacare. So I think that that's where this conversation is. The party's united, and that's, I think, where we move, how we move forward as a party.
But your boss, Mr. Priebus, immediately after the 2012 elections, he had that postmortem where he said, everybody, let's look at the real difficult realities here. We have to expand our base. We have to bring more people into the tent. And by every single person's estimation, the last 2 weeks, Republican strategy drove more people out. And I know that you talk about the polls here, but they were unanimous here that the idea of shutting down the government and screwing around with the debt limit was not popular among the American public. Now, I bring this up because I spoke to a few Republicans, whether it's Barton out of Texas or you have Yoho out of Florida. These guys actually think going over the debt limit would have been good for America. My point is, will there be any unanimity here? Forget they don't like Obamacare, but unanimity as to how far they're willing to go again, because they're going to have the same fight in January and February. Are Republicans on the same page that they're not going to threaten to even go over the cliff, let alone get to the edge?
look, like I said before, you may be right. We do not agree on tactically how we need to get to our end game. But like I said before, on issues, whether it be spending, whether it be getting our debt under control, whether it be Obamacare, our party is 100% in lockstep on those issues. And frankly, when you look at the polls, so are Americans. So that is how our party moves forward. I'm not going to get into tactics. I don't know where we're going to be in January with what senator and what congressman and how they're going to vote on which tactic. That isn't important. And I think sometimes we get caught up in that as a party, but also as from a media perspective. And we need to get beyond that. Right now, we have a resolution to the problems we've been having over the last several weeks. We're going to move forward. And like I said, we are going to have a conversation about issues that Americans really want us to fix as a party and as a country, and that's how we're going to move forward.
Okay, but this is important. You talked about the message, but the messengers are as equally important as to who delivers that message. And I'll tell you right now, we had an election last night in New Jersey. We have a bunch of elections, I can tell you, even on the county-wide levels around our region. And the Tea Party label is being used as a hammer. And some of the Republicans, they don't want to even be associated with the label, but they're put on defense by it. We're seeing races play out in Virginia and everything. Part of your job, part of the RNC's job, is to get more Republicans elected. My question is, how do you guys navigate the Tea Party label when in every national poll here it doesn't carry a good connotation? Does the GOP wrap its arms around and embrace the Tea Party, or do you guys start to separate yourselves from them?
Well, I have to laugh. This Tea Party label that you guys like to continue to talk about when you're labeling a Republican, I don't see you guys talking about Union Democrats. You know, I think I would caution you guys to not overdo it on that. Look, we embrace the Tea Party. We embrace candidates who identify with principles that the Tea Party identifies with. And we want the party, we grow the party, we grow the party by it being a big tent party, by having people that you guys, that we identify with as conservative principles. We want everybody who identifies as a conservative in our party. That's how we grow our party. So when you ask me, how do we grow? Who are the messengers that we need to rely on as a party? I'm pretty happy with the conversations that we're having. If you look at our presidential field for 2016, I'm very, very happy about those people who are out there every single day in the news having conversations about issues that Americans want us to tackle. We have solutions. We have a wide array of messengers who are out there talking about what they need to talk about.
Okay, wait a second though. Your job is messaging and optics. Were you happy, come on now, put the truth meter on, were you happy last weekend where with the backdrop of Confederate flags and Larry Klayman, you have Senator Cruz and Senator Lee talking about leading out the president in handcuffs, and also, I mean, you really like the idea of a Confederate flags waving behind him and not a word of condemnation that they didn't stand by that objects, let alone the language there? Their representative, he's a good presidential candidate. Ted Cruz, after he attacked his fellow Republican senators yesterday on the floor of the Senate?
Look, obviously, and I don't, you saying there was no condemnation for wild rhetoric, extreme rhetoric is false. There has been, there is a line, and yes, we are watching that, and we do not want anybody to go over that line. So I want to make sure to make that clear. I don't know if Ted Cruz is running for president, but what I'm saying is we have a whole lot of Republicans who are out there leading, young, very charismatic people who are out there having conversations that Americans want to have. I can't say as much for the Democrats in their bench, and that was the point that I'm trying to make.
Ms. Kukowski, you are very good at what you do. I'll give you that much, and I certainly appreciate a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.